Let's build a tiny TV. Hello, Mastertron Tamer here. I have got a really fun project for us this time around. I have a little kit, a DIY kit from Tiny Circuits. Now, Tiny Circuits specializes in making tiny miniaturized, very cool things. So I'll hold that there so we can zoom in on it a little bit. This is what the box looks like when it comes. Go ahead and open it up. And you can see it's really well displayed where you can see what it is. So over here we have a little tiny television. And this part down here in the bottom, that's a little tiny remote control for the television. So let's go ahead and open this up and see what's inside the box. Okay, it looks like something's coming out that's behind. So this is the battery, it looks like to me. Might be something else. Oh, there's an SD card in there as well in this little packet. Let's go through that first and just see what's in there. So, battery. This is an SD card with an adapter, it looks like. Hold that a little better. And let's see what else is in here. A little note. Oh, nope. It is a battery. It's a little tiny lithium cell. I'm assuming that's for the remote. And then we have some hardware. And that takes care of what was in the back. On the display, there's some cool things here on the front. So kind of as promised, this is the little tiny remote control. This is where our tiny TV is going to live when we're done. Now, as you can see, it is white the way it comes, and we're going to be working with that, making some improvements. Okay, so this card looks like it's the card for interfacing with the SD card. This, unless I'm mistaken, is a little tiny speaker for our sound. And then finally, this is a card with our display, and it looks like the rest of the electronics are on the back. So that's it. So as you can see, there's not going to be anything other than some delicate assembly going on here. Everything is pre-configured and ready to go. We're just going to plug and snap things together as part of this project. Make sure we've got everything out of there. Okay, so we could just go ahead and put this together in its little white case. It would still be cool. But we're going to take this one step further, and I'm going to paint it. Now, a lot of people have painted these brown to make this cabinet look like a wood cabinet. And that's pretty easy to do. You would probably do that with a couple of base coats. A lighter kind of yellowish brown is a one base coat, and then you would put a darker brown over it and then go over it with a rag or a sponge to kind of give it a wood texture. But we're going to be painting it a different color. So that's the next step. I'm going to go ahead and get this painted, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, it's all painted, and we're going to go ahead and get going with the assembly now. I was going to point out a few things about painting it. It's actually created through 3D printing of nylon. It's a little tougher than it looks. I used a regular spray paint enamel for the main color. And then for the details, I used a water-soluble acrylic to paint those on. It's really nice. And of course, I had to wait till the first coat was completely dry. But mistakes can be wiped up, and you can easily change things if you don't kind of like the way it turned out. And then finally, a varnish top coat to hold it all together. One more thing I was going to point out, a handy thing to be using when you're doing something like this is you can buy these little thin masking tapes. And you can just tape off the areas that you don't want to accidentally brush paint onto. And that can be really helpful. I actually got two different kinds here. If you guys are interested, I would be interested in doing a side-by-side comparison of these two brands. But I'll put them both in the description with some links if you want to pick it up. They're great for any kind of detail work. All right. One more thing about painting it I was going to mention. You need something you can put it on to work with it. It just turned out that a large glue stick was perfect. It gives you some idea of scale too, how small this is. And you could put it right on the glue stick. This was great for spraying and for doing the detail work, and easily removed when I was all done. Alright, we're just about ready to go on with the assembly. Before we go there, I kind of wanted to mention the inspiration for all of this. When I was a child, I used to visit Knox Berry Farming, and one of the things they had there was something called Mott's Miniatures. It's not there anymore. It was kind of an extra attraction, side attraction if you like, of some really beautiful and intricate dollhouses. And I found them surprisingly interesting. They were a bit Norman Rockwell. I would call them a very idealistic way of looking at our country. But they were still very nice, very intricate, and have lots of details. I'm going to go ahead and put up some slides of some things I found about that. So here we've got a ticket from this attraction. And one of the things you notice is one of the main selling points of this was they had a miniature television in one of the dollhouses. Now this was mid-60s, and this was a fairly amazing thing to do at the time. And it was basically their showpiece. Now ever since I saw that, I've kind of wanted to make my own. And as you can see here in this picture, it's very cool. It's unusual that it's round, and I think I know why that is. However, I think what we're going to do here, because I want to get on to the assembly of this and not talk so much about that, is I'm going to do a separate video, and we're going to figure out how they made that actual working television in a dollhouse scale back in the 60s. I've got some really good ideas, and I've done some research on that, and I think I know exactly how they did that. So I'm going to do another video about that, and we'll solve that mystery. Alright, so we're just about ready to go on for assembly. One thing I wanted to mention, in the online instructions, it talks about breaking out 3 little pieces in the back. Now these are made as part of the process. With the kit I received, that had been done for me. They were in this little bag, and here are the 3 little pieces. 2 are for restraining it, and another one is for the switch. Just wanted to mention that so that you could not be looking for them in the case. I assume that they did that just to make it a little bit easier on the people making the kits. One more thing I wanted to mention about this piece here. I don't know if we can zoom in here. Let's give that a shot and see if we can even see that. Let's go in a little bit. That's better. The one that came in my kit still had a bit of flashing on it, and I've got some detailed images of it here you can look at. So I did need to do a little bit of trimming on that. I used a knife and just quickly cut off that piece. You could also use nippers, but that's not that unusual to see something like that. So that was no big deal. So now that I've got this zoomed up, I want to kind of show you how that little piece is going to come into play. So this is the board with the screen on it. It's also got the switches. So this little piece that's going to move the switch both ways has a slot in it that it needs to slide over that switch. And that's a problem, specifically if we don't get that quite right, that could damage the switch. So we want to make sure that we get that right. Another thing to mention is this is an on-off switch. Towards the center of the board is on and down is off. And we're going to put it together in the off position. I think that's going to make it a little easier to assemble. So the first step of this is to grab that little piece and we have to grab it the right way. It actually is going to go in our case and poke out here and slide back and forth. I'm going to push it all the way into the down position, if you can see that, to make that easier to take out. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit more. There we go. So that's, I think, going to make it easier. So we have to be fairly gentle with this board. One, because that switch can break, and then just in general, we want to be careful. So once I've got that little slider in there, the next step is to connect the battery to this. So there is a small connector on right here. We're going to go ahead and put it in. It is polarity sensitive, so it only goes in one way. And then just make sure that is snug. Just using my fingernails of 2 fingers to make sure that that's inserted all the way. Alright, now we are ready to put this board in. So I'm going to hold it like this. Well, take it back. I almost missed a step. We need to pull off the protective film. We won't be able to remove it once we've got it in. We're going to kind of pull the battery back out of the way for right now. And I'm going to put this in so that that little tiny piece of the switch slides into that notch that I just showed you. I need to guide this in. Sorry if I'm taking this in a view you can't see, but there is a reason I need to see it. Let me turn it around for a moment so you can kind of hopefully see how that little switch needs to be in that piece, like the way I have it. And then I'm just going to very gingerly work that down with that in the right place. Now, one way you can tell if you've got it all the way down is it should be more or less flush with the case when you do that you have it all the way down. Now, if it's in the right position and the switch is going to work the way it works, this little slider should turn it on, change the switch, and you should be able to freely move it back if it's working. I'm going to move it towards the bottom so that that's off. And then the other way we can verify that this works is there are 4 switches on the outside, and those should all click. I was hoping those would be a little bit louder. You may not have been able to hear those. But those are all functioning. So once I'm sure this is seated down and flush, we've finished that part of the assembly, and we can just move the battery out of the way for now. Alright, the next part is going to be the board where our micro SD card is going to connect. This board has a connector for the speaker. Yep, that's this. Whoop, there we go. That's the speaker. Keep forgetting I'm zoomed in. Alright, let's push that in. And again, don't force on the one that's on the board. What you need to do is hold it and push it together, because you don't want to break this surface mount component off of the board. Alright, and we'll bend that one back too. Now, you should be able to see, if I hold this right, there's a small connector here. That mates with a connector on the main board inside. Gonna kind of make sure that that's relatively clean. I'm going to pull back the speaker to keep it out of the way, and then this should connect into the other board. I don't have it quite right, or it would be going in. Oh, I know what's wrong. See this little notch here? This is for the wires for the battery to come out. And that has got to be placed so those batteries, we don't want those to be pinched. And I think that's what was going on. Oh, this one is just giving me a little bit of trouble. It's a little bit tighter in the case than the other ones, even accounting for trying to keep the battery out. Well, let's try it one more time. Again, we want to be gentle. So this is looking better than it did last time. It looks fairly well square on top of it. So I'm going to give it a very gentle push. And that should connect it to the other board. I'm going to just pull on it just a little. There should be a resistance from that connector if everything has gone right and it's connected. And that's what I feel. So this is what the end result should look like. Now, one more step is we need to retain these pieces so that they stay down. And that's where these little pieces come in. I'm going to slide one in so you can see where it goes. But here, I'll start both of them. And you can see that there's a little notch in there that they slide in, but that there's a little tab that sticks out towards the two boards. We're going to push that all the way down till it's snug, and that will retain the board. Now you might be wondering why, how that's going to retain it with just friction. Well, we'll be putting the back on here soon, and the back will sit right on top of these. It's a very clever design with the back sitting right on top of that. That will keep everything in place within reason. All right, so this is going pretty fast. It's now time to put in this battery. We're going to fold that in. Didn't quite like the way that went in. Just not sure about the power lead with that battery. Trying to keep it out of the way. So this is what I ended up with. Alright, so we have only the speaker left to attach. So you probably figured out my color scheme here, why this is the color it is for the dollhouse it's going into. The back, I went ahead and used a khaki super flat, trying to simulate exactly what the backs of televisions used to look like. They were often wood. And one of the things I liked about this design, if you even can maybe see this little hood-like thing, that's an actual detail, because TVs back then had picture tubes that had necks that stuck out fairly far, and they would often have to accommodate them like that. So that's a very cute detail that they worked on it. So this is going to come in here and cover the whole thing up, but before we do that, we need to get situated with the speaker. So the speaker is going to go right here, right in between these two, and it's literally just going to stick on. To make this easier to assemble in the device that the speaker was designed for, it comes with an adhesive already on it. I just have to pull off the backing, and then I'm going to press it, and we want to give the adhesive a second. And I'm not pressing it so anything will break, it's just firm. And it should now sit on there. Hopefully you can see that. Alright, that's it. Now when putting it back together, we don't want to pinch that speaker wire. So I'm kind of carefully pushing that out of the way. If I remember right, the top goes in first, and when we do that, we don't want to pinch the battery wire. Alright, I got the top in, and I'm not on the wire. I'm double checking down at the bottom, and I think I'm good to push the bottom in and close it. And now it is assembled. And it all looks right to me. Alright, so sometimes there's a little bit of juice already in these batteries, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for broke and turn it on. It says card not found. Isn't that clever? Well, that's because we've got one more step to do. So on the bottom is where the SD card goes, which holds our programming. If you go to the Tiny Circuit site, they will have their instructions on how you can encode your own things on the SD card. Alright. Well, this is kind of cool. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to zoom in enough to see that. He's actually got it labeled. It says Tiny Circuits. That's kind of cute. I can't remember which way it goes, but it's only going to go one way. So we'll find out. Alright, let's see if I put that in. Oh, it's still saying card not found, so something is not right with how I did the card. Wonder if I'm in the wrong way. I'm going to try it the other way. Try that again. Okay, I just had it in wrong. Had a 50-50 shot, didn't I? So let me make that a little easier for you when you go to do yours. It goes in this manner if you're looking from the back of the TV. That way you can get yours in right first time. Alright, we've got that in. We should be about ready to go. One more thing. It even comes with a remote. It's tiny, like everything else. And on top of that, it came with the battery. This truly is a complete kit. Okay, most of these batteries go where you see the line on it. Those typically go down. And we'll see if that's right for this one. Yep. So plus is up. Maybe you can see that. Once the battery is inserted. And now we have a control. The bottom is volume. Then channel is the next row up. And then we have power and even a mute. So let me hold that. And we'll zoom in and see if we can make that even bigger for you to see. Alright. I think we're ready to see if our TV works. Look at that. Alright. So, I think it's just going through the different channels. Let me turn the volume up. That's historical footage of the Hindenburg. That seems to work. This is supposed to change volume. There we go. I was pushing the wrong one. I kept changing the channel. Now we got all the way up. going through the different channels. Oh. Pretty. There we go. Godzilla can't do better than that. Let's try the mute though, make sure that works. That does turn it all the way down. Just a little bit of volume left. And let's make sure power works. Well, there we go. Let's see if it'll come back on.
Wiping out a city of 6 million in a holocaust of flame. Bombs cannot kill it. All modern weapons fail. Is this the end of our civilization? Can the scientists of the world find a way to stop this creature? For the answer, see Godzilla, King of the
Well, I think that just about does it. Like I said, as we'd say, stay tuned because I am going to do another video explaining kind of the history of our fascination with miniature televisions and how that Mott's Miniatures was done. And yeah, so until next time, I'll see you in that next video.